Welcome to Mastering Agility. If you want to listen to authentic conversations with the most inspiring guests, find like-minded people in the Mastering Agility Discord community, or both online and face-to-face events, this is the platform for you. Grab a drink, sit back, and join professional Scrum trainers Sander Dorr, Jim Sammons, and their guests in an all-new episode.
All right, everybody. I'm really excited to talk to today's guest in preparation for, not even preparation, but reflection on a Scrum Master Summit. So, Anna, can you please introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, hi Jim. Thanks for having me. My name is Anna. I'm based in Antwerp, which is Belgium. And for the last, I'm thinking 10-ish years, I've been doing organizational coaching. And I'm excited about today's talk because I think that we're going to talk a lot about organizations and about the things that we coaches do.
Awesome. So how do you begin to coach an organization, which seems like this big nebulous unit of people and teams and tech and all that? How do you approach that at the beginning?
Yeah, well, at the beginning, there's always a person, a single human being who invites a person like me, either for individual coaching or for some assessment or for, some best practices on something. And pretty much in the first conversation, it becomes very much evident that it's not one person thing. It's the system as a whole, and the system is built of people. And so whatever transformation they're doing, whatever problem they want to solve, it has to be organizational.
Okay. So it normally starts with a relationship and then builds. Okay.
Yes.
So your conference talk, tell us a little bit about it. Like for those people who could not attend, what was the topic? Anything that you can share about that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So in my speech, my main focus was to show people that if they feel not exactly at their place in their current career moment or in their team or in their project or in their company, one of the reasons might be is that they are in the wrong culture. Because it's not about your social package. It's not about your compensation. It's really about the behaviors, the systems around you, the control procedures for people who are afraid of these words. So it's basically, everything around you is a proof that a certain culture exists. And it was important for me to show to people that they might lean into one of the cultures where they would feel better at. So it's like, if you feel bad here, you might want to lean somewhere else, and that's going to be the solution.
Okay. And have you read or heard of the book, The Culture Map?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So I am currently reading it. My friend and producer Marge has been suggesting it to me for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So in today's global workplace, where it's even easier for people like you and I to work together across, oceans and time zones and all that, how do we navigate the realization maybe like that you're not in a conducive culture?
Well, one of the things that is pretty much similar in the book and in my speech is that there are certain patterns that you would see emerging throughout generations, how it's in the book, or throughout years, how it's in my speech and in the work that I do. For example, you might have so for people who haven't heard about the book or who haven't read about the book, so it's written by Erin Myers, and she builds on another book and another study, which was made by Gerd Hofstede, who started talking about things like certain behaviors that people tend to do. For example, he would say that in some countries, you would have smaller power distance, which actually means that when you are talking to your superior, you would not feel that that you cannot talk about some things. So it's a small power distance, he would say. Or in some cultures, in some countries, you are raised to believe that you are never going to talk to your boss. Or even if you do, you always say yes and you always bring them the good news. In some organizational cultures, we have the same. right? Because in some organizations, we may know who the CEO is, but we've never met them. And should we ever meet them, we would be super polite. We would be, saying yes to everything they say, not because of our personality, but because that's the culture. And so you see, this is how it's a little bit connected. And when it comes to how we approach this and what do we see actually in the different countries and different organizations, is that it tends to change throughout the generations, because the people who were raised in more I really want to say the word industrialized, but it's not the word I'm looking for. People who've been raised in a system where you have to be productive, you have to be efficient. So the same people, they would behave differently with their children. And like that, you would see that the cultures a little bit, they're shifting. So the same thing's going to happen in the organizations also.
Okay. And how does, when we use the word culture, there's a lot of connotations there. There's your geographic culture, where you were raised, where you live, your parents, your family, and all that. And then there's the organization culture.
Yeah.
So which one are we talking about exactly? Are we talking about both, or or where those two meet, let's say?
That's actually very interesting, because I really want to say that we are talking about totally different things. But then, if I want to unravel what it means, you will see that some of the attributes will be the same. So the same thing that I was referencing in my speech during the conference. So I'm going to explain the attributes or the building blocks of organizational culture. So there are a couple of them. So bear with me. The first one is your behaviors. What behaviors are tolerated and what behaviors are not tolerated. For example, if you think about the worst thing that you could have ever done at your previous company, if you were not the owner of that company, and that thing would be tolerated, the worst. For some people, it's being late to a meeting for 1 minute, and that's it. Like this would be the biggest number of minutes allowed. But in some situations, a little bit different, right? The first element is the behaviors. What is tolerated, what is not. The second element of organizational culture is the stories we tell. And when it comes to the stories we tell, think about, I don't know, you have a member of leadership team, and this member is always joking in a way that no one can understand. But yet, everyone laughs at their jokes. Like that's the story we tell, right? We all say, "Oh, don't mind so and so. They're just like that. Like they just don't have sense of humor, or they are, I don't know, they're just like that." So it's a story that we tell ourselves. So the second element. The third element is going to be the systems and the power, the rules, the guidelines, how system wants us to behave. The fourth element is what symbols do we have and whether those symbols represent our values or they represent something else. For example, in some companies, you would not have a role like a team leader. But in some companies, you not only have a team leader, but you have like the VP and so on. So it's important for people to have this title. And the last element is what happens if something goes wrong. So what are the guardrails and what are the incentives that we possess? So these 5 elements, they're about organizations. But if you think about countries, if you think about the laws, if you think about the systems, if you think about what happens if something happens, so you would see that those are also connected. But in my speech and in this conversation, let's focus more on the companies, on the organizations, and all of these things that can happen in the workplace.
Okay. Do you have any stories from your past about dealing with like a multicultural team you were on that went really well or that went not well? Because I've had some experiences at either end of that spectrum, and I'm just curious, kind of like if you've got any experiences to share and or any tips to navigate that, that reality for many people.
Well, I'm going to talk about one which went really, I would say, well. For me as a facilitator, I'm satisfied of the things that happened, but I don't think that when people enter the room, they were looking for that outcome. So I'm going to be sharing a story about feedback. So what was happening is that I've been invited to facilitate a workshop on feedback. And I'm saying workshop because the request was that in the beginning, I have to teach people how to give feedback, in what situations, what format, what frameworks. And then, so this would be like first 2 hours. And then I would facilitate the actual feedback session. And this was one of the biggest banks here in the area. And it was very important for the organizers that people from different backgrounds, people from different countries, people from different experiences, they would actually talk. And the assumption was that they only need to have frameworks. They only need to know how. They all know that feedback is important, but they simply need to know how. And so this was the idea of the organizer. And what happened in the end was that a lot of people, they noticed that what they would have perceived as absence of feedback was actually absence of context. And so again, to make the reference with the culture map, the book we've spoken about earlier, there is a thing called high context cultures or low context cultures. It basically means how very practical, how direct I'm going to be. If we are in low context culture, then it means that when I'm giving you feedback, there is no context. Like I have to be direct. If we are in high context cultures, I'm going to be, beating around the bush because we assume that it's like, we know this context. And now imagine that I tend to be direct and you tend to be avoiding of being direct because you rely on the context. And we have to work together for a short period of time, like for a month. It means that we don't have shared context. We the only thing that we have is this like 1 month of work, right? And then it's going to be very difficult for both of us to actually give feedback to each other because I will be thinking that, how do I do it? How do I not say anything which is, be beyond our way of working? How do I be polite? How do I be kind? And you would not even know what to say because you require that context. And so what happened in that workshop is that the actual revelation happened pretty quickly. Actually, it was like the 15-minute in when they realized that it's not about I am silent because I don't have anything to say. It's about I am silent because I don't have a context. And that's when it was not about frameworks anymore. It was really about sharing this experience. How am I really want to say raised, but it's like what I'm accustomed to. Like, for example, one of the things that I constantly talk about when I talk about feedback is that in some countries, imagine you're at a restaurant and then you're being asked, how do you like your meal? And so in some countries, if you really don't like your meal, you would say it's fine, but you will never come back. And that's it. That's the story we tell, right? But in some countries, you would say, actually, I don't like it. And in some countries, you would not only say, I don't like it, you would say, I'm not going to pay for it. So you see, it goes like, there are levels. And the same thing happens in companies. For example, when I'm giving feedback to you, for some people, it would be okay to say, I did not appreciate this and this behavior, and that's it, put a dot. The next level would be when this happened, this is how I felt, this is what I was thinking about it, and this is how I want you to behave next time. And in some situations, you would say it's fine. And so we see it's really about the context. So that was a really profound workshop. I had my agenda and I thought it would be a little bit different. But then really like 15 minutes in, we saw that it was not about the framework. It was about sharing who we are to explain how we want to behave when it comes to feedback.
Yeah.
Both Jim and I are experienced consultants and trainers. Therefore, we know how important it is for organizations to have the fundamentals in place before delivering high-value products. And this starts with understanding the theory behind whatever framework, method, or process organizations apply. And this is where Xebia comes in. Xebia is a pioneering software engineering and IT consultancy company, transforming and executing at the intersection of domain and technology to create digital leaders for our people, clients, partners, and communities. As a gift for our Mastering Agility audience, they provided us with a discount code MA10 when signing up for their open enrollment classes to get 10% off. Go to xebia.com/academy to find the entire curriculum of courses. That is Xebia, xebia.com/academy to find all their courses.
I've heard many leaders say to me over the last couple of years, like, how am I supposed to lead a group of people, manage a group of people? I'm going to just use manage and lead synonymously right now
Mhm.
on purpose. All these different types of people, like they're finding it extremely difficult to understand what you just described, like
Mhm.
the people on their team from high context cultures, low context, very candid cultures versus very overly harmonious in nature.
Mhm.
So what's the solution there for a boss? Let's just call it the B word,
Mhm.
who's got to balance all these, potentially, not always, but sometimes teams are very homogenous, but all these heterogeneous teams.
Mhm.
Is that realistic?
Well, I'm gonna make a leap of faith, and I'm gonna say that most probably, if you have a person who is asking you a question like this, then this person has a little bit higher maturity in making in organizing teams. And I would say that the teams, they would be more or less one cultured. I'm gonna give you an example. So in my speech, I was talking about, I was naming 4 types of organizational cultures. So I'm going to name them right now. So first one is called clan. Another one is called adhocracy. The third one is market. And the fourth one is hierarchy. And when you use the word harmonious, this is usually the exact word that is used to describe clan culture. Imagine a family. And this is where, like, the second I say family, usually my clients, they, it's like something hits, the light bulb flashes, and they understand what I'm going to say. So imagine the family, right? In the family, we don't give feedback. So again, talking about feedback. Maybe you can try to kind of get feedback from people, maybe your siblings, but you would not try to get feedback from your mom. And should you be given some feedback in the family, you don't think that it's actual feedback. And that's something that happens in clan cultures. So you would have a company where everyone looks at their leader as a parent figure. And yes, we are all in this together, for sure. We are one big family, yes. But what happens in companies like this is that, we don't pay our siblings, right? Or we might share some things with them, but we are not that interested in seeing them grow, for example, because we accept them as they are. And so in these cultures, so in the companies that have clan or that lean to the clan culture, you would have very much, it's going to be the highest level of harmony. It's going to be the highest level of satisfaction, of of acceptance of relationships. But this company would not be focused on being effective. This would not be a very much for-profit company. And so if you are a leader like that, then, and if you are mature enough to ask yourself the question, how do I balance my team and what do I do with my team, most probably you knew people that you were accepting into your family, right? And so it's really about making this assessment, if you like that word, but making the reflection. What kind of behavior am I showing? Because again, if we talk about families, family exists because everyone understands the role. If I am a parent, then my team is children. That's it. And the longer I'm a parent, the longer they behave like children. But when we talk about children, there are different levels of children. Some children can be teenagers, some children can be like infants. And so I need to really make them see what kind of children I want them to be, or accept who they are. So is this like a role play kind of situation? But that's how systems work.
Okay. Do you think this problem, or maybe it's not a problem, but this complexity is in the last, I don't know, let's say 4 years, is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Or is it kind of staying the same?
Well, I'm thinking that what I've seen is that the problem becomes a problem when things don't work anymore. And this expression, things don't work anymore, for a lot of companies, the lockdown was a catalyst for that. Because when we are a team, so I'm going to use a different example of different culture. So in the hierarchy culture, what is good? Everything is written down. You have a lot of processes, you have a lot of bureaucracy, and it's a good thing because you know what's going to happen, so that something happens. It's very much predictable. Hierarchy culture is usually the one where people stay the longest. There are lots of, it's not even research, it's the actual statistics. If you look at the churn and at the retention rate of people in different, of companies with different cultures, you would see that hierarchy has the best results. People stay there for longer because they know what's going to happen, they receive feedback well, they are growing, they are learning, they are expanding their skills, so on and so on. But what was bad for companies with hierarchy culture when the first lockdown hit is that, people suddenly understood that they're not like, your career is more than your job. And if you're interested in growing your career, you need to understand your own values. You need to understand where you fit in not only your current project but in the bigger company, whether your values align and so on. And a lot of people understood that they don't want to be seen as part of the machine. And in the hierarchy culture, this is the culture where the leaders, they would say, we operate like a factory, like a machine, like an engine, whatever mechanical term you want to use. And in the lockdown, some people, they understood that they want to be part of ecosystem. So the metaphor of a forest is better for them, is closer to them than the engine. And so that's when the problem hit. So that's what happened in the first lockdown. Or for example, last year I worked with a very, very, very promising, and actually promising, I mean, in grand scheme of things, but with a very important and big nonprofit here in Belgium. And one of the things that I literally was yelling at them was that I kept yelling at them that hope is not a strategy. Because until the moment we met, everything they were doing was built on hope. Somebody will do something because it's a nonprofit, it's volunteers. Everyone believes in the same thing, but no one has, the instruction how to do something. And I kept on telling them that that's not how you scale, because they wanted to scale, actually. They wanted to open 5 new cities. And, and then we did this assessment again. We wanted to look at what culture they have, and they saw that they are very much a family. But they are not interested in being a family anymore. They really want to be, the organization. Yes, we are a nonprofit. Yes, we want people to believe in what they do. But we have to grow somehow. And so you see, it happened last year, but it's not due to the seismic shift of technologies or of the lockdown. It's really the moment that they wanted to scale and didn't work anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about this, and I think a lot of the things that the book talks about really come back to communication for me. There's a huge overlap between how people communicate and cultural differences in things. Like, I don't know if you would agree or not, but I personally am really interested in learning about different cultures, like how they spend their free time, hobbies, holidays. There was just a Dutch holiday yesterday, and it's not one we Americans celebrate. So I was genuinely curious about it. Food issues, religion issues, all those things. But when it comes back to communication, I think that's the really difficult one, because there's so much emotion and conflict that can come from communication. And, if you pick up any book on relationships, family, marriage, or whatever, it's like communication's the core of everything. Is there something that you've seen or read that can help bridge that? Like, could curiosity, or maybe if I want to frame this as a better question, is there a technique that someone could employ to use some aspects of cultural differences, like food, holidays, hobbies, vacations, as a bridge towards understanding communication differences in the workplace.
Yes. And even more, I'm going to play right now one thing with you so that the listeners can see how it works. And
Perfect.
then they can
Do it.
employ the exact technique I'm suggesting here. Okay. So let's imagine that you and me, we were born and raised on one of the three lands that I'm going to name right now. When I say land, you may imagine a universe, for example, if you don't like the word land, or like the world, or like a planet. There are only three. So you have to, when I'm going to name them, immediately tell me how you think, which one you're.
Okay. Sounds good.
So first one is called land of borders. Second is called land of service. And the third one is called land of control.
Order is the first one. Service and control.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do you
And
think
you want to know which one I'd want to live on?
No, purely based on how I named them, without knowing any details, pick one. How do you think?
Order.
Okay. I'm going to pick service. So this is step number one. We have these three lands, and you have to imagine that you are born on one of them. So step number two. Now that you have picked your land, I'm going to give you some attributes of what may be there, of maybe some laws, maybe some I don't know, the way how government exists, or maybe there is no government. I'm gonna give you some like tips, and what you have to do, you have to describe to me how the landscape of this land looks like. So what you need to take into consideration is if you're talking about a planet, or if you're talking about land like a country, do you have mountains? Do you have rivers? Do you have oceans? Maybe you're an island. That's one thing. Another thing, think about the climate. Another thing, think about what are people wearing most of the time when they are outside. Another thing, think about what they do for job. Like what kind of, not like everyone does what they want. That's no. We need something like when you graduate, what do you major in? So something like that. But what you have to always keep in mind is that because you said you were born on the land of order, so I'm going to rephrase this a little bit. I'm going to expand it a little bit. One thing that definitely exists in your land or on your planet is everything about you know how when you enter a country you have this like border control. You have like, so this thing exists in any shape or form that you may think of, but it has to exist. So now try to describe to me this land.
The whole landscape, or just that border control aspect?
Well, landscape, what people do, what climate.
So okay. So I am envisioning the landscape to be kind of mostly flat, not mountainous, not desert, but I would say, gentle rolling hills, green, lots of trees, lots of fences, stone walls, fences, if you will. I feel like people many of them are wearing uniforms. I think there's a clear, doctors or medical people have white coats, and the military has a uniform, and your peasants have a uniform, et cetera, and all that stuff. So different groups of workers look identifiably similar. The border control looks like something you might see in a modern science fiction movie where, it's very orderly. There's no screaming children. There's nobody on cell phones. It almost looks robotic, but it's not. It's still humans, but it feels very hue-based, very orderly, very calm, etc. But there's an undercurrent of there's a right way to do this. And I think that's what you would feel if you came into the land of order is there's a right way to do everything, whether it's sowing crops, treating the sick, getting across the border.
Climate.
Oh, the climate would be, I'm going to say temperate, 4 seasons for sure. There's clearly 4 seasons with preparations and very different norms for each of those seasons.
So this was the land of orders, right?
Correct.
Now I'm going to explain mine. So I was born on the land of service, and our land is something you would see in a Hobbit movie. So, it has a lot of hills. It's very, very green. It's not tropical green. It's like foresty green. You have a lot of rivers. You have a lot of bodies of water, but it's not an island. It's a mainland with a lot of water on it or in it. We do have... it's not 4-season situation. We know that right now is December, if it's December, but it's not snowing. There is no snow. We just know that it's December right now. It gets maybe a little bit cooler, maybe from plus 25 to plus 10, but still very much enjoyable. We don't have a lot of we don't have the big difference between summer and winter. So it's, like I said, plus 25 to plus 10. In fall we may have some rains, but it's not the pouring rain. It's a pleasant rain. And if you think about people, if you look at how they're dressed, everyone is dressed very much, it's not uniforms, but it's very much self-identification. So you would see if these people are making wine, then they kind of look the same, kind of. I don't know, maybe they have hats or something. It's not a uniform per se, but it's like identification. Everyone is very bright. Everyone is, and bright, it's not necessarily the colors, but for example, you may be wearing black, but you would have a hat which is like fuchsia color. So it's like you have something of your personality. People, they like to visit each other. They often have dinner, not parties, because it's not like we drink and we dance, but it's that we visit each other a lot. We do board games. Yeah, we would drink and we dance, but it's not, like a clubbing party. It's not this situation. And when we have this border control, what we check is we need to know why you're coming. So that's the main thing. What's the reason of your visit? We do have some visas. We have some regulations, but these regulations, they are mainly created not because of who you are. It's not based on your passport, but it's based on, are you visiting a family or you're doing a research? Maybe we would recommend you something because of that. Like if you're doing a research, you definitely want to visit this part of the land. And what is else? What is important? What are we doing? So the word service means that it's not service as waiters. It's service as everything is built on relationships. So we have a lot of knowledge workers. We have a lot of people like coaches, like therapists, like people who can guide you in some things. We have some methodologists who create programs for other people. So the word service here is really about influencing, and not influencing like the bloggers, but making sure that you get all the resources and all the help that you need. So now that we have established this, you're going on vacation.
Okay.
And let's imagine that you, from your land of orders, for whatever reason, have decided to visit my land on vacation. What will strike you? What will be surprising to you?
It's probably going to feel very chaotic. Even at the border, right? When I go to visit, which may be my first introduction to your culture, your differences, the climate and the terrain feels not drastically different, but different enough that I'm going to feel like I'm not at home anymore. Like sometimes here in the US, you can travel quite a distance and still feel like you're nowhere different. But I think when I come visit your country, I'm going to feel like it's different. and I'm probably going to feel like I'm standing out, like, because I feel like the attire and all that is going to be stark in nature.
Now imagine you're coming back, but you visited for like a month. What are you taking back?
Oh, I got this really bright colored shirt. I got a new hat, a couple souvenirs, some new food that you all have that I don't have. And probably I have a little bit of interest in a less structured lifestyle.
So basically, in the usual situation, I would do the same, and I would explain also what I'm seeing, what I'm struck by. But just for the sake of making it a little bit shorter, what we've done just now is an exercise which opens many different doors. But the main 3 doors that the exercise opens is that, well, first of all, by using your imagination and by going into metaphors, you are explaining the things about yourself which maybe you would find difficult to explain in just a regular, hey, I'm Jim, this is my story. Because basically you're not talking about yourself, right? You're talking about the land that you think you're born at, right? You're born in. So these are the things that shaped you. However, you are still you. And by opening this first door, we go into the second one, so into the second room, where we start to be a little bit more empathetic to people around us. Because when I communicate in a certain way, maybe this is the only communication I've ever seen, I've ever heard. Maybe because I'm from this land. And if I am from this land, but I am choosing to visit yours, and you find you're stricken by how I talk, for example, it's not because of me, but it's because of everything that shaped me and everything that shaped you. And the third door that we are opening is the door of communication, because this is where we start. It's about seeing how different people are, but it's about accepting something from this person or this country or this background that you might take back. Because one of the answers to the question, what you're taking back, you would have said, I'm taking back the desire to never come back. And like this, again, talking about empathy. Okay, so I understand that, you might enjoy our food and lots of things, but you need some rules. And so like this in our collaboration, I know a little bit better how to approach you. So that's the exercise, which I recommend in answering to your question.
No, it's really an interesting exercise. I really like that. What would the next step be? Like if you were doing this in a setting, like how would you use this as a springboard to something else?
So there are 2 possible options. So option number 1, you do an exercise like this to play with metaphors, with some symbols, with some stories, and then you would talk about, you would basically ask people, now as we have played with this, do you have any thoughts, any reflections, any revelations about how we work? And so you would use it as where we are situation. Or you would use it as, now that we know a little bit more about each other, how do we want to progress? So what is the next step? One of the ways how I used this specific exercise was when I was doing the strategy session, which was offsite, 3 days, very serious, all that jazz. And I used this exercise in the last day. Because yes, these people, they have made some decisions. They have ran through all of the P&Ls and the spreadsheets and everything important for how the company works. They have talked about the staff. They have talked about the policies. They have talked about everything. But one thing which was sparkling to me is that these people, they are the leadership team, and yet they don't know how to talk to each other. It's like, yes, they are a team, but it's not like they are playing the same game. And then I use this specific exercise, and they clearly, because in these events, usually on the last day, people are dressed differently. Like in the first day, everyone is super duper formal, and then in the last day, and it was really, striking how differently dressed they were. And we used this, to explain that, because some people, they still wore suit and tie, but, a little bit just looser. But it was still suit and tie. And some people came in completely different attire. So, this is the way how you accept who you are. You explain to people what exactly shaped you, what your background is, without being too specific about your story.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Is there anything else as we begin to wrap up? Because I want to be conscious of your time and all that. And you've given me a lot to think about. Is there anything else out there that you'd like people to know about you, or how they can connect with you for the future?
Yes. Well, first of all, now that we're speaking after the online Scrum Master Summit, so for everyone who has visited the conference or visited specifically my speech, you all received the goodie bags with a lot of different spreadsheets, file, explanations from me, and the book that I was referencing, and the clan, the family, the adhocracy, market, and the hierarchy culture that was made by Cameron and Quinn. So these are the things that you for sure have if you are familiar with my speech. However, one interesting thing that you should know is that it's always the conversation about organizations. They exist in a way to operate somehow, right? So everything about agility, that's also being one of the operating models, right? And the ways how people work, that's the main type of transformations that I'm doing for companies who want to be a little bit more digital, who want to be a little bit more optimal. And so on my LinkedIn, I write a lot about the intersection of these two, the organizations, the transformations, and the current ways of working, which for many companies is actual agile. So that's one thing that is interesting about me, is that I talk about these things. And another topic which I'm very much curious about, and I'm going to be speaking at two, I said it with so much emphasis, live with actual people conferences. So one is happening in September in Austria, in Vienna, and another one is happening in Germany, in Berlin, in November. And I'm going to be talking about some taboo things that exist in Agile. And one of these taboo things is the burnout and everything that happens because companies suddenly decide to be more agile. So burnout, preventing burnout, or results of the burnout, or everything around burnout. That's another topic that I'm very much interested in. And I'm going to be speaking about that offline with real people in fall of this year.
Sounds good. It sounds like you got a busy schedule for the next few months. So we'll make sure people know how to find you on LinkedIn and all that. And I'm sure there's a lot that, any attendees of the conference will get to be able to connect with you. So thank you so much for coming on. It sounds like you've got a wealth of information to share on this topic. So I'm going to do some thinking about the old land of order and what it might feel like to go on vacation to one of these different lands.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm glad that you have some things to think about.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, let us know by hitting that like button. Share it with friends and colleagues, sharing a message on LinkedIn, joining our warm and welcoming Discord community, or attend recordings as a virtual audience. You can find all the relevant links in the show notes. We hope you'll tune back in for the next episode of the Mastering Agility podcast.